And so glad to have you guys here. As I mentioned just now, for those who are kind of in the live Zoom room, or if you are watching this live stream on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, in the comments or in the chat, introduce yourselves, your name. If you want to kind of connect with other folks, you put your LinkedIn profile as well. What city you're from, so maybe you can meet another folk, whether you're in Australia, Africa, or Asia. We have a global audience, but so glad to have you guys are here. The focus on today's Let's Talk is laughter, humor, and owning your truth with Kathy Klotz's guest. For those who are new to Community of Seven, there's one singular purpose of these Let's Talk calls, and it's to create an environment where you can come authentically as yourself, where you're accepted and where you can have conversations with other purpose-led leaders to talk about what matters most to you. And for those who are in the live Zoom audience, if you can, please turn on your video because we want you in the conversation. And it's always helpful for our speakers to just see your lovely, beautiful faces. And we want you to part of the conversation. So I want you guys commenting in the chats. For those who are on the live stream, do the same as well, because I check the chats as well and the comment section on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, etc. So quick exercise, you guys know the deal. Top right-hand side, put this, for those who are live in the Zoom room, in gallery, so you should probably see everyone, and turn on your videos for this if you can. Raise both hands like this if the answer is yes. And for those who are watching on live stream, you could just type in yes, no in the comment section. So first question I'm going to ask you, how many of you have been told that you're too serious at any point in your life? Okay. How many of you were the class clown growing up? Okay. Not surprised with some of them. And I mean that in a good way. How many of you feel like laughter is the best medicine? How many of you laugh daily? How many of you feel you need to laugh more? How many of you create daily rituals to encourage laughter? Okay, like seeing that. How many of you work in an environment where laughter is encouraged and promoted? Okay, so for the next part, top right-hand side, I love seeing some of those answers. Put it on speaker mode so you should just see me. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I love kind of seeing some of the answers, right? It's kind of funny because you start kind of seeing like the different personalities and you see people who are kind of regulars kind of coming in as well, right? And I was so not surprised when some of you guys raised your hand as the class clown. So before we begin, I'd like to provide a quote by Maurice Chevalier to set the tone. You don't stop laughing because you grow older. You grow older because you stop laughing. Mic drop. So today's talk is about the power of laughter and humor and how it can really help you own your truth. But what does it really mean in practice, right? Laughter is probably one of the strongest medicine, right? It draws people together in ways that trigger healthy physical and emotional responses in your body. It strengthens your immune system. It boosts your mood, diminishes pain, and protects you from the damaging effects of stress. So nothing works faster than humor. But why is it harder for some of us to laugh or to be humorous, right? And so today's call is really kind of about how do we kind of engage and really use like laughter as a superpower. I already kind of mentioned some of the personal reasons why laughter is important, right? From protecting your heart to helping you live longer, to helping you stay mentally healthy. But how about in the workforce? Because, a lot of you guys kind of came in through LinkedIn, right? And for business leaders, HR leaders who are on this call, listen here. Surveys suggest that humor can be one of the most strongest keys to success. A Robert Half International survey, for instance, found that 91% of executives, 91%, believed a sense of humor is important for career advancement. Crazy, mind blown, 91%. While 84% felt that people with a good sense of humor do a better job than their counterparts. Another study by the Bell Leadership Institute found that 2 of the most desirable traits in leaders were A, a strong work ethic, and B, a strong sense of humor. So at an organizational level, there's companies like Zappos, like Southwest, who are using humor as an advantage, right? They're using humor and a positive, fun culture to help brand their business, but also attract and retain employees and customers. So humor for many demonstrates that there's a maturity and ability to see the forest through the trees. You don't have to be a stand-up comedian like Kathy, right? But it's, that power of well-placed humor that's clever, that can really lighten a business situation and really enhance your career. So here are 10 reasons why humor is important at work. A, 1, people will enjoy working with you. 2, humor is a stress buster. 3, it humanizes you. 4, it puts other people at ease. 5, it creates creative and innovative thinking. 6, it builds trust. 7, it boosts morale for your team if you're a people leader. 8, people who use humor tend to be more approachable. 9, humor can allow your company to stand out. And 10, it can actually increase productivity on your team. So I think we have a lot of good reasons in terms of why humor is important in companies, but also what are the benefits for you? What's in it for me? Now, the next part of what we're really going to dive into, and I think Kathy's going to help us with that, is how do you actually bring more laughter into your life, right? What are the practical things we can do? So really quick, one more time, like another quick activity before I introduce Kathy. In the chat, if you're in the live Zoom room, or if you are on the live stream, answer in the comments, right? Answer the following question. Don't press send till I tell you. I'm going to do a countdown, right? But start typing the answer in the chat or the comments now. So the question I have for you is, what can you personally or companies, what can you do to add more laughter or joy into either your life or into a company? So what can you do in your life right now, or what can you do at a company if you're a people leader to bring more laughter and joy into your life? Countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dad jokes, okay? Find the funny, tell jokes, be yourself. Virtual happy hour. Don't take things so serious. Coffee, I love that. Learn to laugh at yourself. I think that's a big one. Dance, ooh, I like that. 10-minute coffee breaks. Share some funny icebreakers. Poke a little fun at yourself. I love that. Be vulnerable. These are really great answers, right? Because I think it kind of ties together. 2 truth and 1 lie. I love that activity. Some of the answers, right? Find opportunity to gather. Share my vulnerability. Share jokes. And I'm looking at the live stream as well, and we're getting some very similar answers. Get around and walk around and talk to people about something other than work. This is amazing. You know what I love about a lot of these comments is that it's not just about being funny, it's about creating an environment where you actually like the people you work with, where you can have fun, right? So thank you so much again. And if you want, put this on speaker mode, so you should probably just see me, and I'm going to introduce in a second our wonderful guest. So I'm so excited to introduce today's guest, Kathy Klotz-Guest. Kathy helps leaders and teams step up, speak up, and playfully and powerfully become their authentic self through stand-up and through laughter. She is a keynote speaker, author, storyteller, creative strategist, and improv comedian. She helps transform leaders and teams into fully human communicators, storytellers, and she does so effectively through improv and comedy principles. She left her high-profile executive position as a vice president of marketing communications for a tech firm in 2010. And she started her company, Keeping It Human, to really bring humanity into business. She has helped marketing, brand, HR, sales, technical execs teams, nonprofits, healthcare become more influential communicators. She is also the author of Stop Boring Me, love that title, How to Create Kick-Ass Marketing Content, Stories, Products, and Ideas Through the Power of Improv. So if you can, go to Amazon or whatever local publisher and buy it now. She was named on Inc.com as a CMO must read. So welcome, Kathy. Hello. So excited to have you here.
Hey, everybody. Hello. It's great to be here.
So exciting. So tell me, why humor and why is it getting so much attention now?
Yeah. I think we are at this period, and I believe we're at this really amazing inflection point that, I think on the heels of COVID, and we're still in it, like everything changed. Everything changed. And what happened to each of us? Everybody here, you probably felt a little disconnected, or maybe a lot disconnected, right? No judgment, right? We felt disconnected from each other, from ourselves. We've gone through this huge thing in the last 2 years. And we're here now at this point where this great resignation, people are unhappy. Well, why are they unhappy? A lot of it has to do with expectations at work. And a lot of it has to do with the lack of humanity, the lack of humor, the lack of being able to show up as ourselves. I think we are in for change, and I hope actually we never go back.
You know what I find fascinating is, so 2 weeks ago, the subject of our microlearning was on confidence. Yeah. And I find it interesting that there was so much connections between what our talk about laughter and confidence, that it's really about being comfortable with who you are. Yep. Letting go of perfection, right? And my kind of most important thing, in terms of really becoming my authentic self, was stop giving a shit about what other people think of you. But it's true, right? Because I know when I was younger, I was the most serious kid. Like, I feel like I was 30 when I was like 13, I just had like so much responsibility. And a lot of that was, I was just so afraid of being evaluated. And I think part of it was my upbringing as well, because my parents, girls aren't supposed to be funny, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of that had to do with shame, kind of feeling like, oh, girls aren't supposed to be inappropriate or, make people laugh.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's so much that's so connected, right?
Oh, it's all connected. It's all connected. And I just want to echo what you said, because so for me, my journey was, I started stand-up right out of college. I've been doing stand-up and improv for over 25 years. I know I was like an in fetus improviser, if you're doing them. I know I was in utero, if you're doing I look good, right, with a little baby in utero microphone. But the same thing happened is I was living that world, and I got a job in tech. And here I was, 22, and I was hitting stages like 6-7 nights a week. Didn't have kids, didn't have a family. I was doing improv, I was doing stand-up, and all of a sudden, like in tech, it was like, okay, we don't do that here. What exactly? You mean have a personality? They're like, no, you can't do any of those things here. And not only was I stopped at the door, but I was specifically told that by a lot of older women that that's not going to work here. And they thought they were helping me. They weren't. They were projecting all of their like stuff, because the world doesn't always treat funny women and women with opinions. Like, it's my Halloween costume. I don't need a Halloween costume. I'm already the scariest thing on the planet. I'm a woman with opinions. Run, right? And so the world said, don't do that. In fact, I can remember being 22, 23, and it was like, we like you. You're smart. Be you. But could you just be less like you? Could you do that? And I remember thinking, what? So all the mixed messages that were sent to, I think, everybody, specifically, I think for young women.
Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting because prior to Fortune, I was the general manager of See Her, which is a gender equality initiative for the advertising industry. And there was a stat that really blew my mind. And it was that when you look at kind of media and advertising, only 3% of ads show women in leadership position.
Yeah.
2% show women as being intelligent, but only 1% show women being funny.
Yes.
And I feel like there's a power to being humorous because there's a double standard with women being funny.
Yes.
Right. And you don't see as many women or women. I mean, I think it's starting to change now.
It is.
But I think there's some power to being humorous. And when you're told you can't be funny, there's something to that. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And you know what, all those messages are there. In fact, there's been quite a bit of research that has looked at gender, if you're interested, everybody, because I've been researching this and, you know, doing comedy for so many years, that like it validates that that unconscious bias, like a man and a woman can open a presentation with the same joke, and women are judged more harshly. And a lot of times it's even in the audience's unconscious bias, right? Because we don't normalize, we don't see funny women. It is starting to change. And you're absolutely right. You know, humor isn't about even just being funny. And I really can't emphasize that enough. I mean, funny's great. Yes, funny's great. But humor is bigger than that. Humor is, look, I take what I do seriously, but I don't have to take myself seriously every minute of every day. Humor is, I can connect with you. I can find something in common with everybody in this room that connects our shared humanity. Humor is, I can lighten the mood because I can say something that just has a little bit of levity. I don't have to crack a joke. I can just maybe tell a funny story. And I want us to all reframe humor as something that we're all born with because it's our birthright. And we don't have to be comedians. We don't have to be funny per se to do that. So I do think the world is changing a little bit as far as, you know, certainly the messages that, you know, when I was younger got. I also think we're starting to recognize that all the garbage messaging we all got, regardless of gender, we all got the messaging that, you know, if you're somehow less than serious, that somehow you're less than professional. And that is garbage. That is such, right? We all noticed the big, right? Is that garbage or what? Hallelujah. Can I get an amen? Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
That's a sermon too.
Amen. Because it is so damaging to our shared humanity. It is so damaging. And we all know that that's not true. And what that's done is it's made people feel shame for expressing their full selves. So we got to disabuse ourselves of that old narrative. That's like old narrative. Yeah.
Exactly. And I want to go back to that whole notion of being able to laugh at yourself. And then David Hansen had kind of remarked, I love people who can laugh at themselves. And this notion of perfectionism, right? And the fact that we have to be perfect at work. And I feel, and I apologize to the men who aren't here because I think you have your own challenges. But I think there's this notion of women and perfection and that you can't laugh, right? Yeah. Or you can't be funny. And one our mutual friend, Jeff Harry, had said something that was super powerful and it blew my mind. And he was like, the opposite of perfection, the opposite of play is perfectionism. Because what he was saying is that people who can't play are afraid because they have to be perfect, right? Yes. And playing is a matter of being imperfect and being able to laugh about your fault, right? And there's some kind of deep connection with that.
100%. Part of why we're so afraid of humor is we think we have to be perfect. Oh my God, somebody will see that I'm imperfect. Newsflash, your people at work already know you're not perfect. Newsflash, the people in your life already know that. It's not a secret. And that's good. No, it's a wonderful thing because we don't relate to perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. It's like certain shades of blonde. It doesn't exist in nature. And no, we are not meant to be perfect. We're meant to be fully human. And the way that we get over ourselves is play and laughter and joy and humor.
Yeah.
And humor is really sharing our common humanity. And if you think about the things that we laugh at, it's because somebody admitted a mistake or somebody told a story of something silly that happened to them. And it's that imperfection that connects us. That's humor. That's what comedy is.
And I love what David had said was he's actually attracted to people who can laugh at themselves. And it's funny because I think about early in my career, because I still kind of look relatively young for my age, but I remember when I was in my 20s, I looked even younger, right? And so I had to be like, kind of this perfect kind of like on point type A, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's when I started to like be able to laugh at myself. And because when you're able to laugh about your imperfection, it makes your team and other people be able to be imperfect. And it's that same thing with vulnerability. I think there's a connection between vulnerability and being able to laugh and to be able to kind of admit to your faults, right? And so it's that whole notion of when you're doing it, it's not just for you, it's also to make someone else and bring someone else into your world and make them feel comfortable about being themselves and being comfortable with their faults.
I think that is so true. Humor really is we reap benefits. We also reap the benefit of just human connection. We're normalizing that we don't have to be perfect. And leaders, we love leaders. And you gave these great quotes, and that is so consistent with the research, is that leaders who have a sense of humor, we trust them more. We respect them more. The research shows they're paid more, they're more promotable. And I think it's because, you wouldn't trust somebody who didn't have a sense of humor, who took themselves so seriously. And leaders that have that approachability, that humanity, they can laugh at their own mistakes, their own fallibility, that sets a normalization in the organization that everybody can lighten up a little bit and show up a little bit more themselves. We need that. We absolutely need that.
Yeah. And so, we've talked about this whole notion of owning your truth. And it's funny because when I posted this, someone had, straight up serious, about owning your truth, replied, I stopped talking about owning your truth. There's only one truth. And there's not your truth and the truth. There's one truth. And he was very serious about it. I was like, part of me in my head was like, lighten up. This is, like owning truth is about being your authentic self, right, and not letting the world dictate to you who you should be and what your truth is. But someone was taking it very serious. Like, I thought it was ironic. Someone was literally reading that owning your truth literally with no sense of humor or no kind of levity, right? So, you mentioned about truth and owning our truth. How does humor help with owning your truth?
Well, that guy sounds like he's confusing it with like a Highlander situation. There can only be one. It's like, no, that's not how this works. That we all get to have our own truth, because the truth that we're talking about here is your journey. What's true for you? What's true for you? And yes, can there be multiple truths? Absolutely, because your truth that's true for you, when you find a way to own it and lean into it, you probably are going to connect better with other people who share that truth. So, here's the interesting thing about just even in comedy, all comedy and humor comes from truth. All of it comes from truth. I can do one-liners that are small truth, that are funny and make people laugh. But if I start talking about my family, right? I come from a big Catholic family of 5 kids. I got 2 older brothers. I got 2 younger siblings that really should have been named like retirement plan and birth control. Seriously, somebody, right? But if I tell the story of my upbringing with such truth in such a revelatory way, people will always come up to me afterwards because I told my truth in such a specific way that allows other people to see themselves in it. So your humor is your truth, and it is who you are. It starts there. It starts there.
Yeah. That is so powerful. Like that whole notion that comedy is truth, because if you think about it, so my love is, how do you build communities, right?
Mhm.
And for communities, a lot of that is what is the common thread that brings us together. And some of the best comedians, if you watch them, they basically bring up universal truths where you're like, okay, I get that. You know, it doesn't matter if you're Black, you're white, what religion you are. We all find, we come together, we're laughing because
Absolutely.
we see the shared experience.
Yeah,
right?
we see ourselves in somebody else's story. I'm loving this chat. I'm watching it. Somebody mentioned that the court jesters. Yeah, I mean, if you think about the wise fool in Shakespeare's plays, the wise fool was the one who could say the truth to the king and get away with it. And you're right. Somebody said they heard that it's comedy comes from pain and time. Yes, the pain is the truth. So when you see comedians talking about some of their own pains and the things that they grew up with, they're being really revelatory and mining very deep about their own truths. And in doing that, you know, the audience recognizes themselves in that. So pain, happiness, joy, frustration, all of that is truth. That is truth. So we're connecting with other people by going really deep on that. So maybe, you know, if you really want to connect with other people, start showing up a little bit more as you. What truths can you share? Now, it doesn't mean you have to like bare your soul. Not at all. But, you know, even the little things, the challenges we're having with COVID. I mean, how many of you here, for example, are parents? Like, can I see a show of hands? Get your camera on. Yeah. Right. It's just been a one big party for all of us, right? No. Like, start talking about these real things that are so real that everybody can relate to, right? Or maybe your aging parents, or what it's like to feel disconnected in COVID, because these are very human things that everybody can relate to. Yeah.
There's almost like a kind of a close connection paradigm between laughter and crying. Because I just noticed that sometimes, especially during the past year with COVID, where I've cried and then I've soon after, to whether it's to my husband or friends, start laughing because it's like, this shit is ridiculous. Like,
Yes.
working from home, taking care of kids. My mom, who has dementia, is like not putting on her Depends. And so she's shitting on the floor and I'm crying. And then soon after I have to laugh because I'm like, I just don't know what to do.
No, it's exactly that. It's exactly that. The other side of, you know, our own trauma and pain and crying is laughter. They're very connected because humor is pathos. If I can get nerdy, if I want to nerd out for the people on here, for my nerd peeps, it's pathos. It's more than catharsis. It's just, you know, we all have that, and it's the way that we make sense of the world. Humor is so much about how we process that. And yeah, the things that are the funniest things, if you watch comedians talking about once they're on the other side of their hurt or whatever trauma, not when you're through it, not when you're in the middle of it, when you're on the other side of it, not in that, you know, that ugly space, but on the other side of it, when you're on that other side of the hurt, you really connect with people by sharing these things that have happened. Yeah.
Will in the comments says that humor is also a way to avoid pain. I was a stand-up comedian at my mom's funeral. Not disrespectful, but it lightened the burden. And there's also a comment about Irish Italian families and funerals and it being a celebration of life.
Yeah, sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to go deep for a second. I know I'm kind of diverging from the questions that you gave me, but so there seems to be a lot of comedian, like you think of, who have a deep pain to them. Mm-hmm. I have so many of my friends who are like the funniest people in the world, but they never laugh themselves, right? Yeah. And you think about, you know, Robin Williams, or was it Robin Williams? The comedian who committed suicide. There seems to be a lot of darkness with people who are kind of funny as well. Not saying projecting that on you, but I'm just saying comedians in general. Is there kind of like a, you know, like a connection between those two, like the dark and lightness?
Well, I certainly think that, you know, yes, some comedy comes from pain. That is true. That is true. I also think comedy comes from a lot of joy and happiness and lightness of being too. And, you know, I think that, you know, comedians feel very deeply. Comedians they are our social conscience, aren't they? So if you look at the
Yeah.
people that are speaking truth to power today, who's doing that? Who's doing that? It's usually not the news. It's the comedians. So I think there's a long tradition of comedians really being kind of that social conscience. And it can be, it's a responsibility to punch up the food chain, we say, to punch up the power chain and hold people in power accountable. And it is a responsibility, and it's also it is. Comedians off stage, sometimes we are a different breed, but many are introverted, probably. Some, it might surprise some people, but yeah.
I love that. It's so funny because I'm reading the chats while we're talking, and there's a lot of conversations about funeral homes and laughter. So
I know.
we have a great bunch right now. There's some kind of connection between funerals and laughter. But so tell us, let's bring it back to the conversation in terms of, like, there's a lot of executives, people leaders, people in HR on this call. What is the role of laughter in leadership, and why is it important?
Laughter lets us know how we're doing. I think that's really the crux of the issue here. Is as we're segueing back here, I think laughter lets us know if we're okay or not. And here's what I mean. Like, I can diagnose a culture pretty quickly. If I walk into a culture, or if I go into a Zoom room, right, and nobody's laughing. And you've all been there. Everyone on this call has been in those meetings, and it's really hard because if there's no laughter in the culture, that is a barometer for the health of that culture. Show me where there's no laughter, and I will show you a culture in trouble. How do I know we're not okay? There's no laughter going on in that culture. And that, to me, is really important. It is a barometer of our own health. And so we need leaders who make it okay, who normalize and recognize that, look, these are tough times, and we should all be laughing. We should be laughing in good times too. We should be. Comedy also comes. Humor doesn't just come from those things. Humor comes from the everyday recognition of our own humanity and universality, and it's a celebration of the fact that we're all human. Yeah. So leaders have to understand that they have to set a tone for laughter's okay here. It's embraced here. And that it's a shared experience. And laughter, they know that laughter is a conduit for innovation, for joy, for happiness. If you want the best out of your people and no one's laughing, oh boy, good luck with that. Show me a leader that never laughs at himself or herself, and I will show you somebody who's not really a leader.
I love that. I think there takes a lot of bravery and vulnerability in order to be able to laugh at yourself. It's funny because when I had originally posted this event on LinkedIn, and people were kind of sharing in the comments, and one person had said, I had worked at a place where no one laughed, where the manager would literally like not prevent it, but like it was looked down upon to laugh at work. And I was like, what a fucked up place. Like, who would want to work in a place where you were discouraged from laughing? That's crazy, right? So I have a question in the comments or direct message. How do you handle joking and teasing in high stakes situations?
So I really believe that how people play in low stakes situations will be indicative of how they show up in high stakes situations. So high stakes, again, it's okay to have laughter, but I feel like that's also an organic thing that the group kind of decides. Groups have their own subculture. We have, a corporate culture, and your team probably has their own subculture way of operating, right? And, my feeling is it's okay to be human in high stakes situations. We don't check our humanity at the door. Mm-hmm. So I think that's okay. And I think it has to do with really, what are the group rules? How do y'all get along? And I see some groups, very high functioning, laugh a lot in high stakes situations. So it depends on how everybody perceives what's okay, what's not okay, what are the rules, kind of the unwritten rules of operation in the group. There is no one size fits all, but we have to differentiate between high stakes situations which are appropriate and high stakes which are not appropriate. Yeah. And I wouldn't conflate the two. Sometimes you can be in a high stakes situation and we need to laugh, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Tom Grant, I'm calling you out, Tom, but he has a great post. My mom always said that there are only men on earth because of women, followed by the line, if men had to give birth, there would be a lot less people. Okay, so kind of going back in that whole life of humor and work, right?
Yeah.
We are kind of in a cancel culture,
Yeah.
right now, where I could see how if you are a white man, it would be difficult to say certain kind of jokes because there's such this, well, I don't want to be perceived this way. I don't want to offend someone. And it kind of stifles humor. And you've heard a lot of comedians say the same, where, it's difficult to have comedy in a situation where you can't laugh about certain things because it might be inappropriate. And for some people, what's inappropriate might not be appropriate for one person, but it's inappropriate for someone else. So how do you tackle that in the workforce?
The way I talk about it is I call bullshit on that. First, let's call bullshit on bullshit, everybody. Yeah. Right? There are so many things that connect us that if somebody's like, well, you took away my ability to punch down on marginalized groups, so clearly I can't be funny, then you weren't funny in the first place. Okay, you can go sit in the corner. Let's just get real here. Let's just get real. Because it's such an important conversation. And I say that really heartfelt because there's so many ways to connect with other people, to talk about the things that are happening in their lives. And so many people find ways to bring humor without ever breaching, right, those and crossing those boundaries. So I would really say to you, if you're dealing with people that are saying that, you know what, that's a challenge probably for them personally, because there's so many ways to connect. And I hear this a lot from comedians. I work with teams. I also still do stand-up comedy and I teach improv comedy. I'm teaching a couple of stand-up courses right now to people who want to learn stand-up. And we talk about these things a lot. And I am blown away by the way that they are creative. And we're always finding things to laugh on and laugh at in our shared humanity that never violate and punch down. So it's possible. It's absolutely possible. So I think all this worry of I'm going to offend somebody, I understand it and I don't want to trivialize it. I also think most people will never violate that. It's a worry that I think we obsess over, and maybe we just need to stop worrying about it. And it's an excuse because we're scared. And maybe let's all have an honest discussion about the fact that we're scared. And that's okay. And let's support each other at work if we're trying to be in good faith, lighten up and have some fun, because there's plenty of ways to do that.
Yeah. And so kind of asking for the folks who are in this group, because I know for me, it took me a while. I think it was really the birth of my daughter that kind of like loosened me up a little bit, right? How can we find more humor in our lives? How can we nurture it? Like, what are the practical things we can do for the folks who are on this call or watching live stream? How can we, A, bring more humor in our lives, and B, how can we become more funny?
Right. So humor and funny aren't the same thing, as we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And yes, you will be funnier if you lean into your truth and lighten up and be willing to show up imperfect. And you will be funnier automatically, because I think humor comes and funny comes from owning your imperfection. Like if you're a super nerd and it's like, yeah, we know it's visible from space, Kathy, like own it. If whatever you are, be that. People will change. You will see the way the dynamics of conversations change because you're self-aware, you embrace yourself, you're aware of, your own imperfections. That will make you funnier. The other thing is, let's make sure that we understand that, laughter and just sharing stories and adding a lighthearted moment are low risk ways to just do stuff every day. Yeah. And do it for ourselves too. I mean, how many of you just laugh for yourself and you don't care if anybody else laughs? Yeah.
It's usually just me laughing at my jokes. So.
And it's gotta start there. It's gotta start there. If I write a joke and I'm not laughing, how can I possibly sell that joke to anyone else? It starts with us.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I want us to start to remember that humor starts with us being accepting of ourselves and our own truth, and don't be so hard on yourself and embrace your imperfection. And then when you're able to do that, you're giving yourself permission to show up in the workplace and bring some of that. It's an attitude. It's not just
Yeah.
jokes. You can
Yeah.
make lighthearted observations. You can tell stories. You can ask how people's day was. You can talk about what happened to you over the weekend, right? Like I next month, I'm in a quandary because my husband and I are celebrating our 23rd wedding anniversary. Again, I know I was married in utero. That's if you're doing the math, right? I was a very hot baby bride, which sounds awful, but in this context, it's innocent. But like, and people always ask me how were you married that long? Like, did you ever, in all those years of being married, like, did you ever consider divorce? And I'm like, no. Murder? Hell yes. Yes. Right? Because everybody relates to that. So that
Yeah.
my point is find the things that like are so you and human and you're dealing with them in your daily life and start to just embrace these kinds of, conversations in the way you show up.
What I love about that, what you just said is humor is really about like connecting with
Yeah.
someone, like bringing like this is we have this shared experience, and this makes you like a brother, sister, or friend. We might have never met in person, but being able to laugh at something, we've had this shared experience. Jocelyn Brady, you have a great question. Do you want to unmute and ask your question, or if you're shy, I can ask your question for you as well.
Oh yeah, hang on. I babbled a lot in the chat. Which question was
it was
I
about
asking?
How do you handle mean laughter?
Oh yeah, Kathy, when people are laughing at someone's, expense, or it's really just cruel and they are punching down, how do you deal with that in leadership or group situations?
Good question.
Yeah, I'm pretty direct, but not mean. I think I don't believe in sort of mean, but I just like, hey, you know what? Look, I think we can all agree great humor punches up and not down, right? There's nothing funny about being the bully, picking on somebody smaller than you. It's like, good on you. You picked on somebody smaller than you. Congratulations. That must feel good, right? But I think in truth, we just have to be honest and say, hey, you know what? We don't punching down's not. We don't really do that. If you feel the need to pull a person aside, have that conversation. I try to find a way to neutralize it. If you're more comfortable than that, I'm comfortable saying it. If you're not comfortable with that, you can always just kind of segue, interject something else, move the conversation away, and then maybe one-on-one, just say, hey, punching down, that's not funny.
Yeah. Anyone else have a question who want to kind of unmute and ask their question, or just tell me in the comments? I love the, let me see. Okay. I love what Grace had just said, where she had a difficult conversation about race with a manager, and how using humor was able to kind of lighten the load, right? And I think we can all kind of use that. It's just the hard part is how do we use it effectively? It's like, what are, for those of us who are kind of developing our humor skills, how do we do so appropriately and naturally, I guess, because you were born in utero funny. Some of us just had to kind of develop it.
Well, it's funny. I joke about that, but the truth is I wasn't born in utero funny. I think actually I had to work at it. I think I had a proclivity, but I just worked at it just like everybody else. I think it's just work and work over a long period of time. I think I would say start small, start with things till you get your confidence muscle, because humor is a muscle. The more you use it, the more confident you will become. So instead, I think what happens is people get scared, so they don't use it. They avoid it, but then you never develop it. So instead, start small. One of the things that I think we can all do a little bit differently is, really humor starts with just saying what is true. And just sometimes just acknowledging the awkwardness. I mean, if you're in a meeting and somebody says something that's awkward and you got to confront it, you can even in that moment say, this is the awkward meeting moment, everybody, that, we're all looking forward to. We were all looking forward to after lunch. I'm sure we're feeling it. And just in a lighthearted moment, just acknowledge it, because just even saying it, people will laugh. Everyone will, even if it's nervous laughter, people will acknowledge that, yeah, sometimes we have to have these tough conversations and we're all feeling a little bit awkward and ill-equipped. Say the truth in that moment. If you own it and say the truth of how you feel, those are little ways to start.
Yeah.
Little ways to start. Start with a comment on somebody's post. Start with just a little observation. Start with maybe an image, and then take the image and either use irony or misdirection, and we can talk about that in a second. Put a name on an image and use that on your, in your email. Start with small little things that make people smile. I really can't emphasize this enough. If you don't have to have this big mic drop moment to make a difference. Little things that make people smile, just little things, can be the difference that changes how people interact with you or perceive you. So sometimes just go for the fun and the levity versus trying to force the funny. Don't force the funny. I don't want anyone getting hurt. But the more you embrace your truth, everybody, and be truthful in that moment, what is the truth I can say in this moment? And own your truth, the funnier you will be, because you are leaning into your human imperfection. And I can't emphasize that enough.
I love that. So Maya Schreier, I love your question. Do you want to unmute and ask your question, or do you want me to ask it?
I can ask it. Sorry, let me turn on my video.
Hey Maya, great question.
So I asked, how do you draw the line between humor and oversharing?
Oh gosh, that's such a, do you have a, because that's kind of a broad thing. Is there something specific maybe that you're thinking of when you ask that? I'm curious if there's.
Maybe, I think the angle I was going with that was maybe sharing too much of yourself. Like, how do you know when it's too, even though it's your truth, how do you know if it's too much that you're sharing?
Yeah. I can give you an example, because I've been in meetings where people will be joking and then they get into conversations about sex. And honestly, I don't want to know about bodily fluids or sex or anything. No matter how funny you think it is, it's uncomfortable. So that's my situation I could kind of interpret.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think what feels right for you, your own boundaries. Like, your own boundaries, right? And if somebody crosses that line, you can walk away or not participate. But I think honor your own boundaries. Like, I say my truth insofar as it's context specific. So if we're all going around talking about our weekends and like, oh my God, what's up with the kids, then it's like, my God, let me tell you what's going on, right? Murder. Like, I got a 13-year-old now, and I swear to God, he just grunts. I don't speak grunt. I bang on his door and I throw red meat in and I run. That's dinner, everybody. But so I will share things like that, because it's such a human thing. And I just acknowledge your own boundaries, know what they are, know what feels right to you in that moment. And, don't share anything more. You don't owe anybody any more than that. You don't owe anybody. And if somebody overshares with you, you can just, not comment or walk away, and honor your own boundaries. That's what's really important. I know sometimes I've seen people feel like they have to get into the joking because they want to belong, and just really honor your own real boundaries. Yeah. I think, you'll know if it feels like, I wouldn't share it with these people. I wouldn't have a coffee with these people and share that. So I'm not going to share it now. Yeah.
So I think you all know this, I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
For those who are on the call or watching who are introverts, how does an introvert tackle being funny? And you are obviously an extrovert. So I don't know if you could answer that. Oh, you're not, you're an introvert too?
I think I'm an ambivert.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do introverts tackle being or finding humor or whatnot? Like how does a introvert approach this? I don't know if it's different.
I think everybody's different. A lot of comedians, I will say, are introverted. It might, like I say, it will shock people, probably. I think really just if you are introverted, there's so many ways. Maybe get curious. I love that. Somebody suggested getting curious. I love that. Ask about the person. Humor again isn't just jokes. It can be stories. It can be, hey, you know what? Tell me about your day. Tell me about your day, Sandra. And oh my God, that's interesting. And what about that? Oh my gosh. Oh, I hate it when that happens. Oh my gosh. I mean, it can just be asking questions. It can be showing up and making an observation. It can be, if you're more the image type, you could put the image up on in your email, have a funny quote in your email signature. Start with what feels right for you. Maybe push yourself a little bit outside of your comfort zone, just a little bit, but nothing that makes you feel so scared that you won't do it, right? And also find people at work that are supportive, right? That you can bounce ideas off of that will give you feedback.
Yeah, I love that. Any other comments for the folks who are in the live or Zoom room or even live stream? If you have a question, you can put it in the comments.
Somebody says, Amanda, used to do that. I just want to read this. She used to make, that's awesome, email signatures that were fun and funny. Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to do.
That's such a great idea. I love that, Amanda.
And if you're introverted too, you might even start a story. There's so many tools from improv like Story Spine, and you can actually, hey, we got a few minutes. Why don't we, tell a story together. You get the story started and then other people can add on to the story and you're telling a group story. So you don't, as the introvert, you don't have to carry the load of the whole, situation. You can just be kind of the catalyst, the humor catalyst. Yeah,
I love that. And Tom has a really great kind of, I guess, tip. He says, oh my gosh, so many great comments, I lose them. I was reading it and I was like, where did you go, Tom? Tom, do you want to unmute? Because I was reading it and then I lost it. It was that whole thing about the camera being self-deprecating.
Sure. Yeah, I say just reinforce the suggestion by others that if you're comfortable, do start with self-deprecating humor. So, for example, my camera's off because the laughter would never stop. It draws people in, and they tend to be more open, but I do want to emphasize it can be harder for female employees if they feel like they're being taken less seriously. And I need to put that on one of those keys that automatically populates because, I worked in healthcare with PR marketing with that women are in healthcare, and thank God they are, because they're funny, caring, and all the things together at the same time. But it can be very difficult if they're in a dominated male world where they feel they're being taken less seriously, or they maybe are, I hate to say this, but they're uncomfortable about their looks and don't want to make a joke about themselves. So I'm going to shut up here before I get myself in trouble.
Yeah, so I love that you saw me ready to pounce. As soon as you said self-deprecation, I was like, no, I know. No, I love that. And I think you can use self-deprecation, and here's the deal. Here's the deal with that. Thank you, Tom, for bringing that up. You can, but here's the thing. As a woman, you are judged differently. And women tend towards self-deprecation a lot more, the research shows. So you can use self-deprecation, but never, never, never aim self-deprecation at your business acumen. So you might say something like if you're not a cook, you might, if you want to be self-deprecating, you might make a joke about your cooking. But if you're a VP of marketing, it doesn't matter. It's not related to your business prowess or your business acumen. Never, 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 I'll say it again, aim that self-deprecating, humor laser at your own business acumen, because it will start to look like you don't have confidence. And that may not be true, ladies. And this goes for men too, but women tend to use it more. So if you do use self-deprecation, beware of your own business acumen and how you use it. Can't say that enough. There you go.
I love that. And Liz says, yeah, my male coworkers would self-deprecate. And when I did, I got called out.
It's completely different. It's unfortunate. It's a double standard. Yes, it exists. It sucks that it exists, but unfortunately, and it may not be true and it's totally unfair, but because it still exists, women never, never, never put yourself as the butt of a joke when it comes to your own talent and your own acumen. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so important. And
Super important. Super
never really even thought of it, but that's,
so many other ways to joke about stuff. Like, I burned chocolate once. How did I do that? I'm like, but that has nothing to do with my business acumen on stage, right? So laugh away. We can all find something to laugh at. The other thing is the research shows that women in higher positions of authority, as you go up the food chain, sadly face a little bit of a likability paradox. It is important that women show approachability and use humor, and those are very, very important. So when you have a title like, VP, senior VP, you have a little bit more wiggle room to poke fun at yourself. But kind of if you are not at that level in the organization, you don't have the credibility and you don't have the personal brand elasticity to use self-deprecation. Yeah.
Change that.
It's
frustrating to me. Like this whole notion, the stat I gave about 3% of ads show women with a sense of humor. It's kind of that same thing where it's so pervasive in our society and
totally.
Work. Like, how do you change that?
It sucks. How you change it? Women, be funny. Show up and own your humor. Stop apologizing for your humor. Be careful of self-deprecation. Now, I'm not going to say never use it. But again, use it not at your business acumen. If you're going to point it somewhere else, use it. Show your humor. Here's how we change it. Show up unapologetically. As there's a cute little girl waving, so I'm waving back. Somebody's got a cute kid. Sorry. Pets and kids get my attention. Hi there, sweetie. But here's the thing. Show up, women. Own your humor, right? And don't apologize for it. And just because somebody else has unconscious bias, and unfortunately in these studies, it surfaces, who cares? Own it for you because it's your human birthright and you want to connect with other people. So don't apologize for it. And that's how we're going to change this, by women standing up and going, hell yeah, that's that. I'm funny. I have a sense of humor and I'm going to use it.
And you know what's funny too? I do that with my daughter, where I kind of encourage her being funny. I'm like, you're so funny. And it's like, I tell her that it's a superpower. Like I literally tell her, and Morgan,
it's a superpower.
Yeah, my daughter's like the funniest. Like,
hey Morgan,
say hi everyone. I think, Amanda, really quick, because our times are up. Do you want to unmute and ask your question, Amanda?
Hey, Lan, thank you so much. I'll be really quick. I actually think what I wanted to say is that we're actually ending on this, and it could be a part 2. I was trying to form my question, and it really relates to what Kathy just touched on, which is male humor and female humor. And I do think that there are differences about what's allowed and what's not. And it could be a part 2. For sure.
Morgan, do you want to say, in closing, do you want to say a joke?
It's a deep topic.
Rick, you're great. You're a jokester.
He's a little shy. Well, I'll do it. If I do a joke, and will you do one after I do it?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll leave you with this thought. So, in tech, I was told not to use it. And I eventually was like, this is nuts. It's my superpower, right? And I had this boss that was like, why are you listening to these people? It's your superpower. Use it. It connects with people. And because of that, like I got promoted because of my ability to connect with different personalities. And then I finally got to say the words that every woman in tech wants to say. I have 10 men under me. Yes. True story. True story. So use that humor superpower. All right, Morgan, you're a rock star. Go.
What do you call a cow with no legs?
So what do you call a cow without legs? What's the answer?
Ground beef.
Ground beef.
What? That is an awesome joke.
You can use that, Kathy, in your next stand-up. Just make sure you give credit to Morgan.
She'll be one of my joke writers.
Morgan.
A joke writer.
Well, thank you so much. Okay, Kathy, how can we help? How can we find you for the folks who are on the screen?
Yeah, if you guys want to connect with me, and I'd love that. I'd love to keep the conversation going because it's such an important one. You can link in with me at Kathy Kloatz Guest, no hyphen, all one word. You can reach me at keepingithuman.com. If you're in the Bay Area, I do stand-up comedy, and I was supposed to be in LA this week at Comedy Chateau, but that got canceled. So
Yeah.
if you're interested in my schedule of comedy too, let me know.
Put it in the comments, and if everyone can put this, you know the deal. Put yourself in gallery mode. Put on your cameras. Whoever is on the Zoom room, unmute yourself because we need to give Kathy a round of applause. Come on. Woohoo! Round of applause. Turn your cameras on. Good one, yes. Woohoo! Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone, for making it. Woohoo!
We can do a part 2 if you want.
Part 2, we can do it. We'll do a part 2 in H2.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Kathy. Bye, Morgan.
Have a
Have a good night.
Bye.